Last season, I took over the manager job at French football club Saint-Étienne with the goal to make American billionaire John Textor's life in France the equivalent of a Shakespearean tragedy. I got started on that goal by getting Saint-Étienne promoted to Ligue 1 and by managing to make a run in the Coupe de France, in which we eliminated John Textor's own team at Olympique Lyonnais in the semifinals. But having achieved promotion to the top tier of French football, we now had one big problem. We're predicted to be in a relegation fight this season.
I'm in a hostile environment, I am completely unprepared, I'm surrounded by people who probably want to kick my ass. It's like being back in high school.
So, figuring we were in for a fight, my first signing of this offseason was to bring in 41-year-old legendary center back Thiago Silva for one last ride in France before he hung up the cleats. He may have not been the same physical freak of nature as he was during his younger days with Paris Saint-Germain, but his experience and personality traits for a full season would go a long way to help develop some of the younger talent at the club. Plus, what better way to terrify a self-proclaimed billionaire like John Textor than to bring in the monster to man our backline? After the sudden retirement of our backup keeper Brice Maubleu, I ended up finding another backup to take his place in Norwegian keeper Kjetil Hogg, who we got on a free transfer. It was the same deal for veteran Greek defender Karalambos Lykoyannis, plus youngsters Diego Brie and Youssef Oualil. But once the transfer window opened, we made 3 specific moves that would go on to define our season to come. First, we sold Irvin Cardona for a total fee of 16.25 million euros to Al Ittihad to bolster our transfer funds, and then used them to acquire fullback Keita Kosugi from Djurgårdens in Sweden for 1.3 million euros, then made our biggest splash of this current managerial era by paying 12.5 million euros to acquire Norwegian wonderkid winger Oskar Spitten-Niseter out of Molde amidst all of our friendlies. These signings would set us up for success in our Ligue 1 season opener, as Igor Miladinovic would score the only goal of the match. And given that win was against the likes of Stade Rennais, I was pretty happy with it.
I really dislike the club Rennes in France.
Ligue 1 did show our games were not going to be the same cakewalks we had in Ligue 2, as even amidst getting points in our early fixtures, we had tough outings against the likes of Toulouse, RC Lens, Nice, Strasbourg, and Nantes. We kept ourselves unbeaten against them, but they were games on a much closer margin, and those would be followed by the first loss of our season against Paris FC at their ground. But the early going of the Ligue 1 season did give me some perspective, in that we were a club capable of holding their own at this level with our current tactical approach. Another 2 wins followed against Montpellier and Lorient, who were towards the bottom half of the table, but an early goal from Lille in our first encounter against them since the Coupe de France quarterfinals last year led to a 1-0 loss. The surprising portion of the season did come when Angers, fighting to get out of the relegation zone, decided to dismantle us at home 3-1 to prove that you cannot let your guard down around anybody in Ligue 1. That almost turned into a full 3-game losing streak when we faced Monaco on their ground, if it wasn't for Lucas Tassan making a rare appearance off the bench to rescue the game and 3 full points in stunning fashion with a brace in stoppage time, which only fueled his confidence to score our only goal on the road against Brest in a challenging 1-0 victory. I'm not making any jokes about their name, the CBS Champions League crew already beat that dead horse into the ground and then had Jamie Carragher spit on it afterward for good measure. Moving on, the next stop on our calendar would be the first Le Derby of the Ligue 1 season, where we would be hosting Lyon. Although prior to that matchup, the board of directors for both Dortmund and Besiktas contacted me about interviewing for their vacant manager position.
Hello amigo, how are you? Come to...
I have a rich American's demise in French football to see to, and I can't be doing things like taking jobs outside of France interrupting that. So, Le Derby et Le Chaudron was our next stop, as Lyon would visit the site of one of their more agonizing defeats in recent months, and unlike last season, our defense was far more solidified. We held them scoreless for the entire first half, Oscar Spiteniseter and Zuriko Davitashvili scored 2 goals in the first half, and even with Martin Sategando's goal in the second half, we hold on to the result and come out of our second straight encounter with Textor's Goons with a W. 14 games into our Ligue 1 season, I'd say this was the game that ended up defining not just our entire season moving forward, but also Lyon's. Sure, our follow-up games after Le Derby against Paris Saint-Germain and Marseille resulted in losses along with a bizarre draw to Guingamp, left us at 3 games without a win. But then, we got our Coupe de France draw for the 9th round, aka the round of 64. And we ended up sorted against Lyon for a rematch of last year's semifinal at this stage. And we'd be the ones hosting it again. I felt like the universe was smiling upon me with that draw, and given how recent our initial Ligue 1 match had been against Lyon, we took a similar approach to that of the league match, and while the goals came in at different time frames, it was almost a mirror match of the Ligue 1 bout, as we yet again defeated Lyon 2-1 and eliminated them from the Coupe de France just as swiftly as they came into it.
Have a nice fall, you stupid bitch.
Guingamp would be our next foe in the round of 32 of the French Cup, but I was more interested in the fact that our league game form after 17 games had us within the top 4 of the Ligue 1 table, while Lyon had slid down to the lower half of it. Quite a decent way to go on an international window break at the end of the year and return in January for a 0-0 draw against Rennes. While this was followed with a 2-0 win versus Guingamp in the Coupe de France, along with some solid wins in Ligue 1 against the likes of Nice and Strasbourg through January, we did lose Carolambos Likoyanis to a fractured collarbone for the next 7 to 9 weeks, and also Igor Miladinovic to a sprained knee ligament for around a month during that stretch. For the round of 16 of the Coupe de France, we drew a 4th tier side in Saint-Privé Saint-Hilaire FC, who would also be hosting the game. They are at the lower levels of the French pyramid, but they have history in this cup competition with one of the biggest upsets in its history, as they once managed to knock out Toulouse in the 2019-20 edition of the tournament in the round of 64. We treated Saint-Hilaire FC in the same manner we treat a Ligue 1 team, by going for their jugular from the jump, as Davitashvili and U19 team youngster Karim Cissé scored early, and we kept pouring the pressure on the amateur side throughout the match. It would end up being a 2-0 win at the end, but given the amount of shots we had on goal, it's a credit to Saint-Hilaire for holding us down to only 2 goals. After a close loss to Nantes in Ligue 1, we got the news that we'd face Monaco in the quarterfinals of the Coupe de France, which caught me by surprise, because they had somehow given Paris Saint-Germain what would turn out to be one of their only 2 losses in any of the domestic competitions this season, and opened this cup competition wide open for anybody to take it. Prior to that showdown, we did recover from the Nantes loss with huge results like a comeback to draw Paris FC 3-3 along with wins over Montpellier on the road, and a 4-3 thriller victory against Toulouse. Although as the month of March began, our form in Ligue 1 definitely took a dip as Lorient surprised us with a 1-0 victory while they were attempting to fight off being dead last in the league. We choked a lead against Lyon to lose 2-1, and yet again struggled against Angers in a 1-1 draw to wrap things up there. Throughout the rest of the Ligue 1 season, our only 2 wins through those last 2 months of it were a shocking result against second place Marseille, and of course, a 3-2 win against Lyon in their stadium as Oscar Spiteniseter found the game winner late in the 88th minute against that lot and helped us complete a full sweep against Textor's crew.
This is corruption, this is a theft.
Even though we did struggle in the final stretch of Ligue 1, our efforts throughout the whole season bore the most unlikely of fruit, as Saint-Étienne managed to finish with 55 points in the league and due to goal differential, finished it in 4th place, putting us in the last qualifying spot that would get us into the 3rd qualifying round of the league phase for the UEFA Champions League.
Well, that was unexpected.
Now, under no illusions whatsoever that this team is ready for that kind of competition, but we played the cards that were dealt, so that's something we'll tackle in the off-season. Just like in our first episode of this whole series, we're going back in time now to talk about the Coupe de France in our quarterfinal match against AS Monaco. Going into Stade Louis II, Saint-Étienne drew first blood with Lucas Tasson's goal in the 26th minute, one in which would be countered within minutes by Danish forward Mika Biarret in the 35th minute for Monaco. But we decided to channel the spirit of non paella-eating terrorist Mikel Arteta, as a corner kick of ours found centre-back Mikel Nade's head at the far post, who sent it into the back of the net for an unlikely 2-1 victory and to send Levet to consecutive Coupe de France semi-final appearances. Yet another rematch from last year's cup would take place, as we were set to face Lyon in the semi-final, an encounter that had been scheduled to happen days after our third encounter of the season against Lyon. As I'd mentioned, the team had been trending downward during those Ligue 1 games, but the Lyon victory came at the right time, because we took the upward momentum from beating our biggest rivals and channeled into playing a complete game against a team who had our number throughout the Ligue 1 season. Miladinovic would open up the scoring early, Haraldsson would retort for Leo, and then Augustin Boquet would take the lead back, all of it happening within the first 30 minutes of the game. We managed to hold on to the 2-1 result before Igor Miladinovic managed to find his second goal in the 88th minute to stick the dagger in, before Zuriko Davitashvili opted to twist it even further for good measure with another goal in stoppage time. A 4-1 victory that was far harder to gain than the score might indicate, and once again, Saint-Étienne were headed to the Coupe de France final, and they'd be across FC Lorient, whose relegation to Ligue 2 had been confirmed in the last few fixtures of the league. So for Lorient, this match meant everything, while for us, we already had a European competition spot guaranteed for next season, regardless of how those qualifying rounds went. Look, I've watched enough sports in my lifetime to know a trap game when I see one. At Stade de France, it would take close to 30 minutes, but FC Lorient would prove as much, as they won the ball in the midfield, and after some crisp passing, they found a pass in the space where Ryan Goulis was able to find his shot past Larsonnet for the first goal of the game. 1-0 Lorient. We were basically in the worst case scenario. Lorient was defending well, our players were getting chances but not finding the target, and the first half would end up staying 1-0. The message to the players was a rather simple one, especially given that we were starting to find our groove. Keep going, because you have the ability to make a difference. So, go figure we get beaten out on a few passes across space and get a little too conservative with tackles inside the box, which allows Joel Vimvuka to score Lorient's second goal within the first 2 minutes of the half.
God damn it!
Okay, this wasn't ideal, but we'd done comebacks in a similar manner before. The response did come just about 10 minutes later through an incredible effort out of defensive midfielder Aymen Mouthek, who ran it down the right-hand side, had his first shot blocked, but the second one found the mark. 2-1, and now we were in the exact same position we had Paris Saint-Germain in last year. So, we continued to stay on the attack, which comes with its own risks, as a near-fatal counter-attack by Lorient demonstrated 2 minutes after our goal. But we had the score to stay alive in this final. Chance after chance would come, and yet, FC Lorient would hold on and defend for dear life. More and more, this was starting to resemble last year's final, but unlike Paris Saint-Germain, our offense was not filled with a plethora of Champions League experienced caliber players who could keep their cool and find the crucial goal. However, as we got into stoppage time and were at the throwing everything in the kitchen sink moment of the game, Aymen Mouthek made a run across the right side and into the box, where he was tripped. a penalty kick was given. One last lifeline. So, I made a decision in terms of our penalty taker. I told none other than Thiago Silva to take this penalty. Now, Thiago Silva has been playing okay for us throughout the year at age 42, but up to this point, he had not scored a single goal for us, and I decided to send him out to take the most important kick in this club's most recent history. Turns out that was the right idea all along, because the monster scored the kind of penalty kick that will live in Saint-Étienne lore for decades to come. 2-2. Tie game. Now FC Lorient kind of understands how we felt last year after the Bradley Barcola goal. The game did go to extra time, and unlike last year, the defenses on both sides still had enough in them to do their jobs, and not even 120 minutes would be enough to decide this game. For the first time this season, we'd be going to penalty kicks in the Coupe de France. Something we really did get used to last year. Rahman would go first for FC Lorient, and he'd score to get this thing started. And while Thiago Silva got us the tying goal via penalty kick in regulation, his PK attempt wasn't so successful the second time around. Hey, he got us here to begin with. I can forgive him for going 1 of 2 here. Especially when we have Gauthier Lassonnet on net for us.
What a save!
The moment that Zuriko Davitashvili scored his penalty kick to make it 1-1, I was confident we had it covered. All Gauthier Lassonnet did was to prove my conviction, as he saved the next 2 penalty kick attempts from Lorient in a row. Likoyanis and Bernauer converted their attempts, and Saint-Étienne could finally call themselves Coupe de France Cup winners for the first time since 1977, bringing the first major top-tier trophy to the club since the 1981 Ligue 1 title. It was a butt-clenching affair at the end, but all in all, we've had an incredibly successful season with Live It, between the unexpected top 4 finish, the Coupe de France trophy win, and doing it all while Lyon were forced to watch from 12th place on the league table with no trophies to show for their efforts. Needless to say, it was another successful year of making John Textor's life absolutely miserable in France. There was also the bonus of being able to help a legend of world football in Thiago Silva win one last trophy before he retired from the sport. But now, the challenges ahead in the 2027-28 season would be greater than before. A return to continental football for Saint-Étienne, and the goal to continue playing up to the standards we set during this past season while maintaining our core players intact. But whether we'll manage to do it or not, one thing's for certain. We're guaranteed to make Textor miserable just by virtue of playing in Europe next season.